as GMs, sometimes it's difficult to have confidence in ourselves in the face of criticism like that, because we might doubt ourselves. There may be a little part of us that wants to please the players, right? This can be especially true at a paid game, because there's a temptation to think, well, since they're paying me, I should do what they want. But this is 100% false. This is not how we should run our table. Paid players in a pro game are not paying the GM to be their servant. They are paying for the privilege of a position at that GM's table because they believe that GM is worth gaming with. Stuart says, question, last night my players are like, the surprise rule has changed, so you can't do that anymore. I was like, I didn't know the new rule. I'm going with what I like. One was very upset. Do you mean like surprise, the surprise round in combat? Is that what you're talking about? The term surprise round is not used in D&D 5e. Instead, the surprise condition is treated similarly as other conditions like prone or restrained. In D&D 5e, a combatant is surprised if they were not aware of any threats before the start of combat. If a combatant is surprised, they cannot move or take an action on their first turn of combat. It cannot take a reaction until that turn ends. The DM determines surprise at the start of the encounter, and the effects of surprise end after the first round of combat. Okay. So no more surprise allowed. Roll initiative at disadvantage. So there's two questions here. One of them is about the actual surprise round, I feel like, but more importantly, how do you handle situations like this? Whereas you say one of your players was very upset because you ran it the way that you knew it, the way that you did it. So this is a very good question. So first of all, I'm going to tell you how I do surprise. I do it wrong. I just read the rules. I do it wrong, and I don't care. This is the way I run surprise. Someone gets surprise when they start the combat. Like, so if they start it and they literally, there's any argument that could be made for they're surprising somebody. And basically, this is how I treat it. They get to go first. They get to make their attack roll. And they also get to roll for initiative and enter initiative where they enter it. So they're going to get 2 turns if they're the one initiating the surprise. So in other words, if you're the first one to fire your bow in an ambush, you get to roll for that hit. You get to take that turn. And you get to roll initiative. And you also get slotted into the first turn order. Okay. Stuart says, that's the way I've always done it. My player said 5.5 isn't like that anymore. Dave Imagination says seems reasonable. And then Stuart says so upset. This is interesting. So this is so good to talk about, Stuart. This is a good topic because that's the way I run surprise. But the real deeper question is, how do you handle when you make a ruling and player says something like, whoa, hold on, GM, the new 5.5 rules don't work that way. Now we have a choice to make. Now you get to choose whether you're going to basically pursue letting the rules lawyer overrule it, because that's what they're doing. They're rules lawyering. Okay. Now, this isn't always a bad thing. This is not always a bad thing. Sometimes you may choose, oh, you know what? I was doing it wrong. The way you just described it. Let's do it that way. Let's do it the right way, guys. And first of all, I never apologize for this because no game master is going to know all the rules all the time. So that's fine. And if a rules lawyer brings it to your attention, you get to decide if you're going to follow it or if you're going to say, at my table, I run it like this, and you are completely within your right to do this. You can do this as much as you want. And then players can decide whether you're doing it too much or not enough, whether they like it or they don't, up to and including they can, argue a little bit about it. They could even leave the game if they don't like it, right? But this can create a little bit of friction. Hello friends, GM Philosopher here. I hope you are enjoying the video today. Now, I just want to take a quick moment and let you know that you can grab my premium ebook right now, The Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery. This is 50 pages that contains 24 years of gaming wisdom packed into an easy to read and implement ebook. This ebook is all about how to run emotionally resonant games that will keep your players wanting to come back, wanting to game with you. I've had many successful games at my table, some of them spanning a decade or more. And this book is packed with the lessons that empowered me to do this. Hard-learned lessons that took me years to learn. If I would have had this ebook in the beginning, it would have saved me years of time and effort. And I am making it available to you today. Link is in the description. Plus, this is going to help me support the channel and all the good things we do here to empower game masters to run better games. Thank you so much for your awesome support, and I hope you enjoy the ebook. Make sure you grab it. Do not miss out on this amazing deal. And with that being said, thank you so much, and let's get back to the video. In this specific case, it sounds like, Stuart, you had a player who was really wanting to go rules as written. They were really wanting to, but you were like, no, I'm not doing it rules as written. I'm doing it this way. Okay, so then they get upset about it. Okay, so basically they proposed, hey, it doesn't go like that. But then you said, well, I understand what you're saying, but we're going to do it this way. This is how we're going to do it. They might get upset about this because they have some kind of emotional attachment to it that way. Maybe they built their character Player was pissed because they were ambushed and got pissy. I see. Okay. So they were basically thinking, "Oh, I shouldn't get this surprised. You should have to follow the rules when you surprise me." When players get mad about things like this player is emotionally tied to getting the outcome they want. This is just facts. And we all are to a point. That's why things matter to us. I'm emotionally tied to winning combat when I'm in a D&D game. That's why I'm rolling and trying to do my best. Doesn't mean we're always going to get what we want, hence conflict. Sometimes things do not go according to plan. Sometimes we face great disaster in the adventure, right? Some players have a hard time accepting this. Some players believe that when they are not given the win or allowed every single rule to like try to give themselves an advantage, when they feel that this is not done for them, they get very upset. They get emotional about the situation because the outcome is deviating from their expectation. Their emotional connection to the expectation. Sirius says exactly. That player wants to win always and hates to be attacked. Always trying to talk their way out of things. I was like, not this time, talky person. Sometimes it's like that. Some people, some monsters, they're not going to talk. They're just going to start swinging, man. This is what it is to be an adventurer in the dangerous world of a high fantasy world state, right? But here's what I think is the meat and potatoes of my answer. I think that your approach to this was completely reasonable. And what you have identified here is that this player has a potential to get upset when things don't go their way. I'm just going to say this. There's a bit of immaturity at play here because there are times when I petition the GM to try to get things my way. And they say, no, we're doing it this way. For example, I run the spell mirror image on my bard, but the GM in that game does not run mirror image like the 2024 rules. He likes to run it as per the 2014 rules. Now, I would prefer to run mirror image as per the 2024 rules personally, because I think it's cooler and better. But when the GM says, no, I run it by 2014 rules, I think, oh, okay, no problem. I'm not mad about this. Do I wish it was different? Maybe. Am I going to be mad? Am I going to lash out at the GM for this? No, of course not. Because the GM gets to make the rules. If I feel too strongly about it, what I might even do is message the game master after the game and say, hey, I noticed that you're running the 2014 version of mirror image. I feel like I'm not as interested in that if you're going to run it that way, which is fine. I was going to see if it might be possible for me to go this other way, blah, 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 do this other thing, kind of retcon my build because I kind of built for the 2024 rule set. No issue at all. I just want to kind of see if I could retcon it based on this new information I've learned about your table rules. I think this is also a rational approach. If a player came to me and asked me if they could retcon their build because of a table rule, I would say, 100%. Because I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to get the best out of your character possible. And so this is how I feel like a rational player, a player who's maintaining a rational frame of mind, conducts themselves at the game table. They do not get a us versus them mentality toward the GM. They realize that we're telling the story together. And what they're failing to realize is that this isn't a I win or you win kind of game. What they're failing to realize is that when they get ambushed, this is an opportunity for story. This is an opportunity for, maybe if they feel a certain kind of way about it, instead of lashing out at you as the GM, they put it into their character, and their character is angry. I'm so sick of these monsters always ambushing me. I've had enough. And maybe they go into a berserker rage and they run up and they get too violent and they rip the head off the monster. I don't know. Then maybe they role play out the emotion, right? This is how we create more deep story. However, in your case, the player lashes out. I think that a GM at their table should be able to make whatever rules they want. And if people don't like it, they can kick rocks, because it's up to the GM to foster the community, to foster the table, to conduct the game. And the game master gets final say. And the game master may know what's going to work best. Players may not like it. They don't have to like it, though. This is my opinion about it. When a player actually just gets mad at you, this is a sign of immaturity. Immature players can be problematic, right? Stewart says, exactly. Every other player, role played, combat, etc., was just the one that was like, that's not the rules. I was like, since when? When they told me, I read about it and said, I will make a ruling going forward. Yeah, that's fine. You can make a ruling. You don't have to, whatever. I feel like as GMs, sometimes it's difficult to have confidence in ourselves in the face of criticism like that, because we might doubt ourselves. There may be a little part of us that wants to please the players, right? This can be especially true at a paid game, because there's a temptation to think, well, since they're paying me, I should do what they want. But this is 100% false. This is not how we should run our table. Paid players in a pro game are not paying the GM to be their servant. They are paying for the privilege of a position at that GM's table because they believe that GM is worth gaming with, and that they're in high enough demand that it's worth paying to get there. The GM is not a servant to the players. The GM has the GM has a responsibility to conduct the table and run it well, right? And to run the game well. So anyway, Stuart, my final answer is, I do not believe you did anything wrong. I think that there's some immaturity on the part of the player here. Keep a little eye on this moving forward, because these things can evolve into explosive situations. I have had some players get very explosive with me about things they didn't like. And I've even had one occasion where I had to kick a player out of my group because they were being so immature.